Good morning. Hi, I am Jennifer Tejada. I'm sure you guys have seen me, talked to me before. Kimmy is out vacationing with her family today. So it's me and Madalyn doing it today.
It's us girls.
So I'd like to introduce you to Madalyn Sklar. Sklar, right?
Got it.
Social media evangelist and podcast host and Twitter chat host. And you host Twitter Smarter. That's right.
Twitter Smarter, chat, and also in Spaces.
Yeah, that's amazing. So Madalyn's a social media expert. Like she said, Twitter Spaces is the place where she is doing a lot of amazing work right now. So thank you for joining us today,
Thank
Madalyn.
you for having me.
So let's start by talking about social audio. What is that? Like, what does that mean for the people who are not using it yet? What is social audio?
I think the best way to think about social audio is live streaming, but without the camera.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so appealing, because so many people do not want to be on camera.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Not us.
Yeah,
obviously. But I can remember when Google Plus Hangouts first started over 10 years ago, and the excitement that we could like live stream so easily through Google. And I had such a hard time finding people that would do it with me.
Well, because no, you're right. A lot of people get very camera shy, even if they're just sitting in their own space. And so I can see why social audio is a way to interact with people and not have that pressure of being on camera. So social audio specifically is a little bit different than podcasting, a little bit different than live streaming. It's a little bit different than what to you, other than like not being on camera, what are the benefits? Like, what are the things that, what's the reason why business owners, social media experts should be really considering using more social audio?
Well, social audio is great because it's a way to just have a pulse on things. You can talk to your customers in real time, your community. You can make great new connections with people. I've been using social audio for more than 2.5 years now, I think, probably close to 3. And the connections I made on there have been amazing with people all over the world. And I just kept thinking like, okay, I could use it for this or for that. And I was already podcasting. I've been podcasting for 10 years. I've been doing live streams a long time. I've been hosting Twitter chats for like the past 11 years. It's just another way to build community.
And so do you feel like the community gets built differently than just like traditional social media because you're hearing each other's voices and getting to know each other?
I think so. There's something so powerful about audio, you know? And especially when there is no camera, when we don't have to worry about being camera ready. I remember one of the first times I was in Clubhouse, which is one of the very early social audio apps, very early on. I'll never forget this. It was like a whole bunch of speakers, and I was just tuning in, and this lady goes, that was on the speakers, "I'm in the bathtub right now," as if it was very matter of fact, but then just kept talking. Like she was talking, by the way, I'm in the bathtub, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, that was TMI.
What a luxury.
But it also shows you that you could do that.
Anywhere. You could be in the car, you could be anywhere.
Yeah. I remember early being on Twitter Spaces, and I would be out driving, and I'm like, but I didn't want to miss a conversation. I wanted to just listen. I don't want to talk and drive. But then they see you on there and like, oh, Madalyn's here. I'd be like, okay, I'm driving. I'm just listening. I'm not going to stay as a speaker. But it gives you that power to do it on the go.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the next thing I really wanted to ask you about is like how you got started. I know we talked about this a little bit, and I thought it was a pretty amazing story. So I'd love for you to tell the people here how you got started on Twitter Spaces.
Yeah, so it was really interesting. I was already in Clubhouse, but very quickly I was not into Clubhouse. Clubhouse to me in the beginning,
it was a weird place.
Invite only, iOS only.
We were in the middle of a pandemic.
Which I think is what helped it, because people were bored and trying to find things to do and new ways to connect with people. But it just wasn't for me. And I was on Twitter one day on the mobile app, and we used to have fleets. So like at the top of your home feed, you see these little circles with it was very much like Instagram stories. And one day there was one, but it was purple, had a purple ring around it. And I'm like, why is this a different color? It's in the Fleets bar. It looks like Fleets, but it's different colors. So I tapped on it. It was Twitter employees testing Spaces before it was really released to the public. But because they were building it to be a public thing, I like stumbled into this space with like, they were testing it.
Just because you were curious and you're like, why is it
I was
purple?
a fly on the wall. And I was like,
Cool.
this is, all because I saw this purple ring around somebody's profile picture at the top of the feed. So I go in there and I'm just listening in. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're all Twitter employees. They're all talking about this brand new thing that hasn't even really officially launched yet. And all I could think was, oh my gosh, I want to use that for my Twitter chat, my Twitter Smart. Because there was a time when live streaming was really popular years back, but it wasn't really mainstream. Like everybody wasn't doing it yet. And I thought, oh, after my old school Twitter chat where we're just tweeting with a hashtag, let's go to the live stream and I'll bring the guests and we'll just continue the conversation. And after a few years, kind of got bored with it. And I really did it to just show people the power of live streaming. But then with this Twitter space I'm in, I'm thinking, the wheels were spinning. I'm like, wow, I would love to kind of go back to how I used to live stream with the guest after the chat, but do it in Spaces where it's just audio. And I know that I won't get as much pushback because, again, so many people are like, oh, I got to be on camera. And it was really hard to get people to live stream. You never have trouble getting people to just talk through their phone.
So you talked a little bit about like your Twitter Smarter chat and how you're using Spaces how Spaces evolve that. Tell us a little bit more about your communities, your Twitter Smarter chat. And I know you have a couple of other communities.
Yeah, I've been building communities through Spaces, but the funny thing is I wasn't setting out to do that. I just love the power of audio. I love podcasting as it is, and I just view it as a live podcast. And so, going back to the Twitter Smarter, I'm listening to his employees, I'm getting all that in my head. So the girl that seemed like she was in charge, I DM'd her. She didn't know who I am. I don't really know her. I just know she's part of this new Spaces team. So I DM'd her and I explained who I was and what I do and how I have this long-term Twitter chat. My Twitter Smarter chat turns 8 years in 2 weeks. So like we're going to have it's been going on every week for 8. Ann knows. Ann's been a part of it as a guest multiple times. Cammy's been a guest multiple times. It's just a really awesome chat. So I just thought, let me ask this employee, I can see the power of using this. And so they said, okay, in a few weeks when we have our round of beta hosts, we'll include you. And so I just viewed it as a way to continue the conversation from a Twitter chat, the traditional Twitter chat, where we're just tweeting with a hashtag, to then we can go and talk together. And other people can be a part of it. They can actually grab the mic and talk to us. So I was really just growing the community even more, even though it was an established community. But from the start with that, I'm like, okay, what other Spaces? Because this is how I am. And it's like, what else could I do? So very quickly, within a few weeks of becoming a beta host, testing Spaces, I came up with the idea of a space called All Things Audio, where me and my co-host, we come together every week to talk about social audio, because at the time, this was like early 2021.
So you have a social audio about social audio.
It's very meta. It's social audio, talking about social audio.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense.
And we just celebrated 100 episodes of doing it. We turned it into a podcast as well.
Oh, yeah.
So what me and my co-host discovered was there's so much news week after week of what's going on with Clubhouse, what's going on with Spaces, and then there's LinkedIn Live Audio, and there's so many others. And we decided, like, let's kind of make this a news space where you come together and get the latest news. So we called it All Things Audio, and we talk about the latest social audio news.
Oh, that's really cool.
And even though we've been doing this for over 2 years, almost 2.5 years, we never not have something to talk about. And we built a community.
It's always evolving.
We built a community by doing it. And we're so amazed. We've met so many amazing people. And again, this wasn't something we set out to do. We just wanted to use this new feature in Twitter because my co-host and I are both podcasters, and we're audio geeks, and we thought, what a neat idea, and let's see where it goes. And we didn't know where it would go. And so it's been 2.5 years, 100 episodes, because we started officially counting episodes, and we take the audio, turn it into a podcast, so it's available in any podcast player up there.
So tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what's the process of turning a social audio file into like a full podcast?
Well, so my co-host and I are both podcasters, so we have the gear, we got the hardware and the software and the know-how to take the audio through Spaces, but also because we know how to podcast on our own, we're each actually recording ourselves separately as well.
So you're kind of you're just setting up the audio ahead of time for the podcast and doing both at the same time.
So we're basically when you hear us in Spaces live, we're also recording that same feed into our computer separately. So we each have a clean copy. And that's not going through the internet where it can get messed up. So I got mine that's being recorded. She has hers. She's also a podcast editor. So she takes all that, puts it together. But then we like to have a Q&A later in the show for the live version in Spaces. So we'll get an MP3 download of that, and she'll work her magic to edit that in as well. And when you go and listen to it as a podcast, it's amazing to know that was a live space that we did in real time 2 days prior to its release.
See, that's how you make that. Yeah, that is real. It's a really smart idea, and like that takes like extending your content to the next level.
Yes, and it's a lot of prep work because we're always like staying on top of the latest news, what's happening, so we can turn around and share it. But because we built this amazing community, some of the people that are always in the know, they are always communicating with us, and they're sharing with us all the time. We even started a little private group DM with some of them, because we'll have them sometimes come as guest hosts as well. If I'm out or my co-host is out, then we'll invite some of them, because they're super smart and we met them through this community.
That's amazing.
And they know just as much of this as we do. So it's just been amazing. It's just such a nice feeling, especially just a few days ago, celebrating 100 episodes and having our community come together with us in Spaces to talk about and congratulate us.
Well, that is amazing. Congratulations on building that. Like,
but there's more. Like, I didn't stop at just 2 of these.
There's more.
But wait, there's more.
All right, okay.
Right now, call me crazy. Right now, I'm hosting 5 weekly Spaces, but one of them, one of them ends today.
All right,
tell
me more.
One of them's temporary because it's a little bit too much for me. So I Twitter Smarter first, then All Things Audio. Very quickly after All Things Audio, a couple of years ago, I'm like, I have this idea. And that's what I love about this.
That's always how it starts.
Right? I do have a tattoo that says "Just Do It."
So
and
just
I'm very
do it.
big at just like
just give it a try.
I've been an entrepreneur in digital marketing for 27 years, and one of the things that's helped me all these years is I get lots of ideas. Like, just try it and see what happens. I didn't expect these Spaces to be all that great. I didn't know if they would turn out well. I thought I'll try it. If it doesn't work, I'll stop and do something else. So I had this idea for quite a while. I would love to review Twitter profiles in real time and help people make their profiles better, because there's a lot of mediocre or very, very terrible Twitter profiles out there. And I thought maybe Spaces, I was like, should I or shouldn't I? Because Spaces is audio. It's not visual. And I kept thinking, maybe this should be a Zoom call. Maybe it needs to be video so I can walk you through, like look at your on the screen and walk so we can all look at it together. But I decided to experiment and try it in Spaces, because again, I was all over Twitter Spaces. People know me for Twitter. I already have a large community there. So I just went for it. So I just picked a random Saturday afternoon when I wasn't busy, and I set aside an hour, and I just, for a few days, I said, hey, if you'd like to come get your Twitter profile reviewed, come join me on Saturday at 12 o'clock noon Central, and we're going to hang out. And people showed up from all over the world, and they loved it, and they've never stopped coming. They keep coming week after week. So very quickly, I was like, well, let me give me a co-host so it's not all on me. There's really no prep except for just promoting it. That's about it. And so I got me a couple of co-hosts, and we invite the listeners to participate. And it's just been a lot of fun. And that is a whole other community that I wasn't trying to build.
That is separate from the first two. Okay, so now what's number 4?
They're all separate. So number 4 is the one that ends today. So one of my co-hosts for several of my Spaces, who I got to know through Spaces over the years, was this amazing gentleman named George Silverman. He was the inventor of the telephone focus group from the 70s. He used to talk about all the time. Super smart guy. He wrote a book called The Secrets to Word of Mouth Marketing. Sadly, he passed away a few months ago. He was 80 years old. He was scared to tell people. I mean, we knew he was an older man, but he was worried that none of us would take him seriously if we knew he was like that old. But he was one of the smartest people. And that's why I had invited him to co-host some of my spaces, because he would bring an amazing perspective. And this was just somebody I randomly met a few years ago because we were all in spaces. So because he had written this book, I never did get around to getting his book. So when he passed away, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go get his book. I'm going to get the audiobook version. And then I thought to myself, being me, why don't I start a space? Because there was a whole group of us that were all kind of mourning his passing, and a lot of them knew him through my spaces. And we were all like, you know, in shock because it just came out of nowhere. And I remembered he had this book. So I told everybody in one of my spaces, I said, you know what, I'm going to go get the audiobook. And I looked at it. It was 8 sections, like 8 chapters for the audiobook. There's also a Kindle and a paperback. I asked the community, I said, hey, who would like to also get his book, and why don't we read it on your own time? Let's come together once a week and just go chapter by chapter and talk about what did we get out of it, what did we learn, and we'll probably learn from each other because we'll get other insights. And I really, the selfish reason why I did this, because I knew if other people were reading the book, it would force me to do it and do it timely, because I'm notorious for getting audiobooks on Audible. And a year later, it's like,
still sitting in your library.
Okay, I started listening to chapter 1, but then I didn't go further. And I really wanted to pay tribute to George and go through his book, because he was so smart. And plus, he narrates it such a way that he stays with me, listening with my AirPods. So today is the 8th week, 8th chapter.
Oh, so this will be the last week.
And that's fine with me, because I'm already doing a bunch. And then my other space, and I'm not going to do anymore, is I'm working on a podcast that is completely separate from my business world. That is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Decided to go ahead and start a podcast, and it's almost ready to launch. But then I kept saying to myself, well, people have been waiting for this. I've already started a community for this particular group. So I thought, why don't I just start a weekly space? Because if anything, I can bring people together to talk. So I only started that space 5 weeks ago. And I just say to myself, you know what, I could spend an hour a week to bring this group together. We're all getting to know each other better. And that's the whole point I see with social audio. Whether you're doing it in spaces, Clubhouse, LinkedIn Live audio,
you're still creating
you're bringing people together, and it can be done in so many different ways. Most of my spaces are educational. We're just trying to educate people. We make amazing contacts and networking in that process. But this little side one is just something completely separate, and it's just to connect with people who are like you, where we can come together like-minded, which is really how all of these are. But you can come up with them for just about anything, whether it's a hobby or something with business.
What stands out to me about that is that from the marketing perspective, it helps you to develop and kind of like crowdsource your content and your community before you put any work into like building a full podcast or any other asset.
Yeah, it does.
That's really cool. That is an interesting approach to it.
And it's a great marketing tool.
No kidding.
I mean, I've been podcasting for 10 years because I wanted to podcast, because I just always thought podcasting was cool. But very quickly, I saw that it was a great marketing tool for my business. And I mean, think about it. People are typically listening with their AirPods or earbuds,
and you're immediate
like
subject
they
matter
know
expert.
you. They just feel like they get to know you by just listening to you.
So for people who aren't using these social audio tools, what's the process? How's your audience finding you? Like, how are you marketing your conversations? Like, how does that part of it work?
Yeah, so when I set up my spaces, I'll just start tweeting, I'll start promoting them, and there's a lot of word of mouth. Which is what's really helped, because as you're building communities through your social audio, if people like it and it resonates with them, they'll go tell other people, and they'll take your tweet and retweet it and talk to others about it and say, hey, you gotta check out this space. This is some really interesting stuff.
How big do these spaces get? Like how large are as far as like other audiences you've seen, like how big are they?
Some of them are really big. You know, Elon Musk has been hosting some lately with politicians that have been like in the millions.
Interesting.
It's been a little crazy. And you know, wasn't sure if that was going to work. It's like, is it, you know, because there are times where Twitter's not working so well since Elon Musk took over. But they seem to have, they seem to have fixed spaces where they can handle a lot of traffic, because he's been really pushing the limit with that.
So I know that there's like so I speaking of Elon Musk, been some issues with Twitter. I'm trying to figure out how to say this as delicately as possible. There's been some challenges
A lot
with
of
Twitter,
challenges.
and there are so many other platforms. Why Twitter? Versus others, and maybe you can tell kind of the audience about some of the other things, other platforms that you can do this on.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Elon Musk. I do not like his tweets. I have to just turn them off.
You just said it. Okay.
Because I'm not afraid to say it. I've been very public about that on my spaces because I don't want people to think because they know me for helping people with Twitter. And that's really, my niche in all of this for years is that I support him, and I do not. But Twitter is still a great platform.
Yeah.
What I've learned is you have to cut out all that noise and just not pay attention to like what some of these people are tweeting about, all that nonsense, because it's still at the end of the day a great platform to connect with people. And I bring so many people together. I meet so many amazing people. Yeah. And it is such a life-changing experience. I mean, with just this idea of reviewing Twitter profiles in real time, I've connected with people, so many in Africa and India that probably have nobody helping them with social media that absolutely love coming and learning from me. And it's like, wow, it's just, it's amazing to like have an impact because you don't really think of that impact and how far it stretches.
The global.
But what I think was great about social audio is super global.
So you mentioned Clubhouse. Let's talk pros and cons of Clubhouse.
Clubhouse started off with a bang. As everybody knows.
It did.
And it came out before Spaces. Yeah. Spaces was already being worked on, but Clubhouse, the problem with Clubhouse in the beginning was it was invite only for a very long time. Yeah. So you had to get invited by somebody who was already in. Yeah. And it was iOS only for a very, very long time. Yeah. I did get in, it was December 2020, I believe. And I was super excited, and there wasn't that many people in there yet. But I don't know, there was just something about it that just didn't really attract me to really want to invest a lot of time and energy into it. I just kept feeling like I was listening to TED Talks. And a lot of people express the same view as me, and all these wannabe experts and stuff. People are like, oh, if I just go get a lot of followers in here and tell everybody I'm an expert, then I'm an expert. And you could tell there was a lot of that going on.
Yeah. So you think the challenge? Do you think that the exclusivity of it initially was what drove those kinds of people to lead those conversations?
I think so. Because they were being just too exclusive with the way they were building the community. Yeah. And so many people wanted in that could not get in. And it was no surprise that once Twitter Spaces started, that they all gravitated. Plus with Clubhouse, it's an app where everybody starts at zero. You have no followers.
Yeah.
You have to
you already have your community.
Yeah, exactly. So with Spaces, at least, it's integrated into Twitter.
Yeah.
And when I saw they were working on that, I'm like, okay, Clubhouse, I never felt like, I'm not going to totally knock Clubhouse. Social audio is still social audio. If there's a platform, I always recommend for people, try the different platforms out there. LinkedIn Live Audio is really popular because a lot of people I'm not huge with LinkedIn. If I was using LinkedIn all the time, that probably is.
And it depends. I think it depends on where your audience is, because I use LinkedIn Live all the time. And listen to a lot of things on LinkedIn Live just because that's kind of working in tech. There's lots of people there that are having interesting conversations and in the sector that I'm interested in. So I think that it makes sense. So if your community is in Twitter, then Twitter Spaces is probably a great place. If your community is someplace else, then some of these other tools work just the same way.
You want to be where your audience is and where the conversation is.
Absolutely.
And the thing is with me personally with LinkedIn Live Audio was that they don't have very many features. See, we're spoiled with Twitter that we can have them recorded. We can have people listen to a playback. We can easily promote it. With LinkedIn Live Audio, from everything I've seen, it's like you can't really promote it too well. You can't record it.
You need some other bolt-on tools for it to actually work properly. So
it's a little frustrating because many times in our all things audio space, my co-host and I would talk about LinkedIn has such an opportunity here, and they could have done so much more with that. When you have people in Spaces and Clubhouse with all these features,
And they kind of launched last, right?
They did.
Yeah.
It took a long
so
time
maybe
to
they're
launch
just
it.
still. Hopefully they're still working on
And
it.
there's some smaller ones that have come and gone.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see like who's emerging with this, but now the new thing is this Threads, right? With
I was going to
Meta.
ask you about that.
And for weeks now, since it's only been out a few weeks,
Yeah.
we've been talking about that in our All Things Audio space. Is okay, are they going to incorporate audio? Like they could add live audio to this social audio
and to blow it out of the water.
Totally blow it out of the water.
Yeah.
But we've also looked at what's Facebook and Meta's history. They did have a podcast component in Facebook a while back, and they were trying to do some social audio, but then it fizzled out. And so,
well, I wonder if it's because the community who would be interested in social audio wasn't on Facebook anymore,
right,
as much as they used to be. And so I wonder if I just keep seeing Meta take ideas and then evolve them into a version of their own and be super successful with it.
Right.
So I'm super interested in Threads and where it's going to go. Has everybody gotten their Threads accounts?
Threads is pretty cool. It's what was missing in Instagram.
It really is. It really is.
I mean,
I'm
liking it.
But to your point about like not having to start from zero, and just adding on to your community and having like I am finding myself using Threads differently than I use Instagram or Facebook. Completely.
A lot of us are. We're trying to. Us marketers are like, I just don't want to copy and paste my post into this one. What can I do that's different? Yeah. And I notice that's what all of us marketers were all talking to our community on there. What would you like to hear from me? What can I do? I want to be a little different here.
Like I feel like I'm gonna end up using Threads more personally because it feels a lot like Twitter.
Same here. I was doing that the other day, and I'm like asking, you know, telling a little personal story with my dog, and like, what do y'all think? Do y'all like this kind of content?
Because I feel like since I'm not using Twitter as much anymore, I'm not doing that as much. And so, yeah, I think if they add that social audio component of it, it could be a lot of fun. It could be a lot of, yeah. So we've got a couple of people here, so I'd want to make sure we have time for questions. Does anybody have questions? Ken?
Hi, thanks for your talk, Madalyn. I wanted to ask if you had any thoughts about Blue Sky or Mastodon or any of the other Twitter alternatives that are coming up.
Yeah, I played around with these new alternatives to Twitter. Mastodon, very quickly, I'm like, that one's kind of complicated and kind of hard to make sense of. So I'm not a huge fan of that. Blue Sky, I jumped in right away when I got invited in. Is so super plain and there's not much to it. But since Jack Dorsey's behind it, who was one of the founders of Twitter and the CEO of Twitter for a long time, I thought it could be really good. But it's just a matter of time before you get the spammers and the marketers and the bots that ruin it. It reminds me so much of how Threads is right now, but Threads is just so much prettier when you're in it than what I think.
It feels very vibrant just right out of the gate. Yeah.
But I'm just also a fan of wherever you're comfortable. I think people should try the different platforms, get in as many as you can, and see what resonates for you. And you might find, you know what, I really like Blue Sky, and I really like the conversations I'm having, and I like the UI, and this is a place for me. A lot of people are leaving Twitter. They're just not happy with it. Sometimes I wonder, is it going to be working tomorrow? Frustrating at times.
Yeah.
Well, I do like Threads right now, and I hope that we marketers don't ruin it, just like you said, Jennifer. So earlier you had mentioned using a tool to record your podcast individually, you and your co-host. What tool was that?
Yeah, so there's all different kinds of tools you can use to record yourself. Now, my podcast mic is XLR on the end, so that's the 3-prong. It's not like a USB. So I had to find hardware specifically that would let me use my fancy podcast mic. I have a Shure SM7B, which a lot of the famous podcasters are, that when you see them on their YouTube with their big podcast mic, that's what I have. You can't just plug that into your computer to record yourself. So you got to have certain types of hardware. So first I experimented with an iRig, so the letter I in rig. And it's pretty inexpensive, and you can take an XLR mic, plug it into that, and plug that into your iPhone. And so for a while, what I was doing was, instead of being in spaces, not sounding so great with the, you don't want to use AirPods for sure, because audio is horrible with that. You want to use the old school earbuds with the cord. is what a lot of people had recommended to me to do. But with the iReg, it doesn't let you record though. That was what was missing. It allowed me to at least sound better through my phone in Spaces. And then the next thing I came across was George Silverman, because he was having great audio using his, through the Twitter app on his phone. I'm like, what are you using? So he eventually made me a video to show me, and it is called a PodTrack P4, and it is through Zoom. PodTrack P4. It's this small device, not that much bigger than your phone, and you can put an XLR mic into it, and actually you can have multiple mics. And then you can plug in your iPhone or Android into it, and it allows you to record because you can put an SD card in there or do it directly plugged into your computer. So that's what I'm using these days. So when we're doing our all things audio that we're turning into a podcast, I'm able to have that gear together through my phone so I can talk to everybody in Spaces, but I'm using my fancy mic and I'm recording. You have to always remember to hit the record button. There have been times where I forget. Record yourself, and then that's how we're getting that clean copy. But because there's me and a co-host, I'm recording myself separately. She's recording herself separately. So we got to edit those two files together. When we're done with Spaces, I immediately take my file and I send it to her for editing. That's cool.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I think you have convinced me to get back into Twitter Spaces and dig around and see what's out there. Do you want to give a plug to any of your communities or anything that you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, check out my website, MadalynSklar.com. I have so much information there, and my Spaces. When you go to my Twitter profile at Madalyn Sklar, in the bio, I actually have like my 3 main ones with the date and times. Yeah. And I have a hashtag for each one to make it really easy for people to go and find those and come join us. And the thing is, I'm always making sure mine are recorded. You don't have to record your Spaces. Yeah. I like recording because I like the content to live on. Most people are going to listen to a replay. Not everybody can come, live when you're recording something. So all of mine are always available for a replay.
So we can all go back and listen to
listen.
Awesome.
Listen to the ones I've already done this week, my 3 that I've already done.
Oh, I'm hooked. I'm in. This is what I'm going to listen to while I'm working today. Thank you so much, Madalyn. I really appreciate you coming, and thank you for everybody who came today. And so we will see you guys back here at Impact Hub Houston next month, and I think Cami will be back. So thank you all.
Awesome. Thank y'all for being here. It was fun.